My name is Rio, and I am a little mermaid who lives in the crystal-clear waters of a beautiful river, surrounded by tall trees and colorful flowers. Since I was born, I have always looked at that space as my home. A sacred and magical place where all aquatic beings lived in harmony. However, my mother always warned me about the dangers of swimming far from shore, a rule she sometimes found difficult to follow. While my older sister explored every corner of the river with fearless curiosity, I often felt trapped, as if the world beyond the waters of our home was calling me. Stories about the lives of humans have always intrigued me. My heart was pounding with the idea of adventure and discovery. One day, as I played with my reflection in the calm waters, the idea of exploring the unknown became unbearable. I looked everywhere and realized that there was no one watching me. Why not? I thought. I'll go for a walk and see what happens outside this place. And so, with determination, I delved into my adventure plan, without imagining the consequences that would come. I swam and swam, moving further and further away until, confusion took over me. I looked around and realized I was so far from home that now I couldn't find my way back. Anxiety swept over me like a strong current, and in a moment of despair, I began to cry. I shouted my sister's name, called my friends and even my mother, but to my sadness, no one responded. Loneliness echoed in the silence of the river, and my attempts to sing our favorite song had no effect. Only the sound of water answered me, like a lament, as reality became clearer and more alarming. Looking for shelter, I saw a human crouched by the river, filling a jug with water. Adrenaline took over me. In fear, I hid behind a leaf of the large aquatic plants that grew around me. But to my surprise, the current dragged me, and, in an instant, I was caught up in the movement. With an unexpected impact, I ended up inside the gourd he used to collect water, absolute confusion forming in my mind. What is happening? I thought, while the human, unaware of my fate, lifted the pot and placed it over his head. Feeling fear growing in my heart, I realized that I was trapped in a gourd with little water and at the same time at the mercy of the unknown. After a few minutes, the human lowered the pot and began speaking in a language he didn't understand. The words sounded strange, as if they were from a distant and intimidating world. After a brief moment, I saw a small boy approach, playing with the water in the gourd, and at that moment, I was mixed with his fate. "Hi! What is this?" he exclaimed, his eyes fixed on the gourd. His mother shouted something after him, but I couldn't understand it. The scared boy hesitated after the woman's scolding and walked away, but soon returned, holding a small bowl. With a quick, carefree gesture, he dipped the bowl into the pot and was surprised to see my reflection there. Fear took over him and, on impulse, he threw the bowl away and I fell to the floor, making a thud. The boy tried to run but hesitated, shocked by what he had seen. He took courage and approached me slowly, holding me in his hands. "Do you talk?" he asked in a reluctant voice as he watched me with eyes lit with curiosity. "Put me back in the water!" I shouted, the urgency in my voice making him jerk away in fright. He cursed one word when I shouted. "You screamed!" he exclaimed, almost in shock. His eyes widened at the possibility that I was a magical creature. "Do you speak English?" I asked, while trying to understand what was happening. "Yes, of course," he replied, still surprised. "But what about the woman? What was she saying?" I looked into his eyes, as if searching for an explanation. "Ah, that's my mother, and she speaks our native language," I explained, relieved. "Please, can you put me back in the water now?" I asked once again, with sincerity welling up in my voice. It was a plea from the bottom of my heart, one that should not be ignored. "Look, if I put you back in that jar, my mother might get scared and do something bad to you," he replied, as hesitation took over him. "Please, just wait a moment," he said, gently placing me on the floor. He went in search of something. When he returned, he was carrying a glass bottle full of water, and with a reluctant smile, he picked me up again, placing me inside it. "That's it," he said, grinning. In an instant, All my insecurities were replaced with hope. "Now, what do we do?" I asked, my voice regaining some strength. "My name is Rio," I introduced myself, wanting to establish a deeper connection. "I am Justice," he replied, his words filled with curiosity and respect. With each word exchanged, I felt that a friendship was born between us, a bond that transcended our different worlds. "Justice, what are you doing here?" he asked, working to close the distance between us. "Well, I can't find my way back home. My mother asked me to never swim outside of where we live, but I decided to take a walk and ended up in your mother's gourd. Can you help me get back? My mother's wedding sister is in 2 days, and I need to be there," I begged, urgency mixing with anxiety. He seemed to reflect on my words, and his gaze conveyed compassion. "Don't worry. You just need to put me back in the river. My father must have organized a search for me. As soon as I return to the water and sing our song, I'm sure my people will find me," I assured, encouraging him. "Or to help me." Justice hesitated. "It's not as simple as it seems. Children can't go near the river. The elders say that mermaids kidnap children and they never see their families again." Fear began to fill his eyes, but then I realized I needed to defend myself. "Justice, that's not true. They're just lies. We haven't kidnapped anyone and we're actually harmless. I promise I won't harm you if you help me." Okay. I'll try," he said. "I heard that mermaids can grant wishes. If I help you get back, what will you give me in return?" The spark of curiosity and hope for something new lit up his face. "I promise I'll give you anything you want. Anything," I replied, determined to find a way to repay the kindness he was offering me. "I want to visit the land of humans," he declared, eyes shining with new possibility. "Can I take my mother and brothers with me? Is this something you can accomplish?" he asked with anticipation growing. "Yes, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes," I assured, forming an invisible commitment between us. At that moment, his mother entered the room and interrupted us. "Justice, what are you doing with that bottle?" His tone of concern and confusion became evident. "It's an empty bottle I found," he said quickly, hoping to avoid further questioning. "Discard this or put it somewhere and come help me in the kitchen," she ordered as she straightened the lace on her dress. Then quickly he left the room. Justice took decisive action, hiding me under a pillow where he said, "Wait, I promise I'll help you get back as soon as I'm done in the kitchen." With each passing moment, hope became more intense, and there was a fire before us. Time was an invisible enemy, but I felt determined. I had to make this happen. But things started to get serious when a little girl named Kara entered the room. Wanting to play, she slowly lifted the pillow, and when she saw me, her eyes widened. "Wow! What is this?" he shouted, immediately generating an uproar among the brothers. "Sarah! Sarah!" she called, and didn't know what to say. I was in a delicate situation, and a subtle panic began to take over the scene. When Justice rushed in, he grabbed the bottle and, with a furtive glance, tried to silence questions about his surprising discovery. But Sarah, the older sister, questioned him when he entered. "What is happening?" His expression was a mix of confusion and curiosity. Now everyone was paying attention to us, and I didn't know what I would do. "Justice, you arrested a mermaid?" Disbelief permeated his tone of voice. Amidst the confusion, he stammered, "No! I wanted to help the mermaid get home." The tension in the room was palpable, and fear began to seep into their expressions. "But I can't tell Mom," he begged desperately. I knew it couldn't go on like this. With a brief moment of hesitation, I threw out the idea I had in mind. "Sarah, I promise I'm harmless. I just want to go home. If you help me." The plea flew from my mouth, taking the form of a desire that carried a lot of weight. Sarah's gaze softened, but Justice's hesitation was visible. "You can't trust the mermaid, Justice," she exclaimed, but the desire to understand the truth was beginning to shine through. When the conversation became intense, I realized I couldn't sit still any longer. The time to act had arrived, and my determination ignited. We need to find a solution. Someone's life is at stake. Justice helped me, and I have to go home. Emotion was in my eyes, and the current of truth began to flow through us all. Finally, after long discussions between them, they reached a consensus that they needed to help me, but I soon realized that the clock was ticking. The atmosphere became tense as Sarah and Justice exchanged knowing looks, and I knew this could turn into a big challenge. The next morning, at daybreak, Justice was awakened by Sarah, and they quickly set off together towards the river. Passing through the trees and bushes, everyone was anxious and restless. But on the way, they met an old woman who immediately blocked their way. "Hey, kids! What are you doing here? Don't you know that kids can't be on this path that leads to the river?" Her voice was like ice and made their hearts race. Justice, in a moment of tension, muttered, "We need to go back!" The woman shouted with authority, "Get away now! This is not your area!" And in a rush, they started running as fast as they could, looking for a safe place. Sarah pulled Justice to hide behind the tree as the woman passed by, not noticing her presence. Fear quickened their steps, but as soon as the path opened, they continued to run. When they finally reached the river, a crowd of merman soldiers were waiting, already looking for me. Each of them was more imposing than the other, and the scenario that unfolded before us left both of them very uneasy. Justice, without hesitation, opened the bottle and poured its contents into the blue waters. In an instant, I was welcomed by everyone, the joyful hugs of the soldiers who were so happy to see me. The warmth of feelings warmed the atmosphere, but the happiness soon turned into tension. Then the merman commander stepped forward, his imposing figure surrounded by mystery. With a fierce tone, he pointed his sword at Justice and Sarah. "Where did you take the mermaid?" he demanded. The tension was growing in a frightening way, but I couldn't let it end like that. No! I wasn't taken anywhere! They helped me!" I screamed, trying to make it all make sense. What followed was a wave of confusion. Not only the soldiers, but also the citizens of the river were on alert. Acting on instinct, the commander held a bottle of potion and poured it onto me. "No!" I screamed, desperate. "He's innocent! Don't do this to him!" Justice was in a desperate situation. The magical liquid began to envelop his body, and I saw horror reflected on my face. Crying, I begged for his release. "Please, he didn't do anything wrong. He just wanted to help me." My words were full of emotion, as pain mixed with determination. But the commander's order was firm when he heard my pleas. Shocked by the scene that unfolded, I knew I needed to act and convince everyone around me. I was reminded that some things in life should be faced head-on. I ran up to the commander with courage and faced him with fervor. "Look, he risked everything to help me. If he is punished, who knows what will happen to me? We need to unite our worlds." I cried out, hoping that my sincerity would reach their hearts. Finally, after long minutes of hesitation, the commander agreed, but not without hesitation. "He can go, but not without being punished," he said, and the atmosphere between us became more tense. "If he doesn't come home, I'll turn myself in. I don't want that. I will not stop fighting for what is right," I declared, emotion shooting through my veins. So my parents quickly rallied to my side, determined to help him. They brought treasures and riches, which could compensate him for his bravery and generosity. And when we finally found Justice, he was just beginning to recover from the spell, and his eyes soon lit up at the sight of me. "Thank you, Rio. You have no idea how much this means to me," Justice exclaimed. Warmth and happiness enveloped us, and deep down we both knew that the friendship we had formed was a powerful force that surpassed any prejudice. The miracle of our connection opened the eyes of everyone around us. Life began to return to what it was, and little by little the river stopped seeming like a hostile place and became a home again, a union between different worlds. Years after all of this, I knew that Justice's story and mine would never be forgotten. The echo of our voices still drifted across the waters, bringing with it the hope of a better future. When a human appeared at the riverbank shouting my name, I realized that what we experienced connected us in ways that surpassed the barriers of imagination. And so, through the strength of love, friendship, and the fight for what is right, our story was consolidated as a legend to always be remembered. Each of our names would become part of the enchanted cloak that covered our watery home. And as tears of joy streamed down my face, I knew that what really mattered were the lessons we learned and the bonds we formed. Thanks for watching. If you were moved by this magical story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have many more incredible stories to share with you. Until next time.